everyone here and ready? Anyone not ready?
We're ready.
Does everybody have their cell phone muted? Okay, we'll see. All right, sorry, Chief.
I'll definitely leave plenty of time for questions after this, but I have a couple of comments before we start with questions. First, I'd like to recount the incident, and then I'd like to review the entire process to the grand jury. Then I'd like to update you all on kind of where we are in the investigation steps we've taken, some interviews, some forensic tests, the autopsy, and the gun that was found on Mr. Hubbard. And then I'd like to discuss issues related to the officer's leave status, meeting with the family of Mr. Husband, any releases of evidence that's forthcoming to you all, DVR or video evidence that we have. I'd like to discuss a little bit about that, and the witness interviews. And then finally, some of the tough stuff. I want to talk a little bit about race, community activists, and the media coverage of the grieving family over this past week. So I'm going to start with recounting the incident. As you know, this past Saturday around 5:30 p.m. On Folklore Street, Officer Limbaugh stopped Mr. Husband and two other passengers on traffic for not using his turn signal. And upon exiting the police car, walking up to the car, he immediately smelled marijuana. At that point, he asked Mr. Husband to get out of the car, and the car door was opened by Mr. Husband. And if you can envision an open car door, that be the wedge that's created between the compartment and the open door, that's where much of the initial interaction happened, between that wedge. And so just envision Mr. Husband standing there in that wedge, interacting with Officer Limbaugh. And this interaction included more questions by Officer Limbaugh to Mr. Husband about, is there drugs in the car? Is there a weapon in the car? Which Mr. Husband responded no to both questions. Then, according to Officer Limbaugh, he began to try to pat down what's called a Terry frisk, Mr. Husband, and immediately noticed the butt of a gun in the front waistband of Mr. Husband. At that point, according to Limbaugh, he tried to grab the hands to put them behind Mr. Husband. So Mr. Husband is facing inward toward the compartment parts of the car. Officer Limbaugh has Mr. Husband back facing him. Okay, he's grabbing the hands to handcuff Mr. Husband at that point, and a struggle ensues between the two with control of the hands. And so they're back and forth, and at some point, according to Limbaugh, Officer Limbaugh, Mr. Husband breaks free. His hands breaks free of his grip on him in this struggle to handcuff him. And according to Officer Limbaugh, Mr. Husband reaches in the waistband to pull the gun out. At which point Officer Limbaugh says he fired one shot at Officer Limbaugh. At Husband. Officer Limbaugh fires one shot at Mr. Husband, striking him. According to Officer Limbaugh, Husband takes a couple of steps towards the rear of the car and collapses there. At which point, Officer Limbaugh says he reaches underneath. Husband grabs the gun and places it on the top of the car. It's important to know that Officer Limbaugh is left-handed, and because that's going to be important as we continue to investigate to corroborate his version based on witness accounts, based on forensic evidence, including ballistics. So at that point, other officers are responding. As the other officers respond, some parts of the crime scene on video that we have. So some parts of the crime scene is caught on video, not the incident, because they don't arrive, the incident is over before they arrive, but they catch parts of the crime scene on their in-car camera dash cam. Of course, one of the people with husband in the car when it stopped is in the front seat. Another one of the people in the car with him is in the back seat. And they see portions of the interaction and hear portions of the interaction. After the incident is concluded, we get those two people in the car with him, bring them down to the police headquarters, and video, audio tape the interview for both. We also find a witness at the scene the day of the incident who's in the parking lot where this incident occurs, playing football with a nephew, young nephew, underage. I think he's 8 years old. And so this independent witness sees a perspective of the entire incident to the left and behind Officer Limbaugh. So envision me being Officer Limbaugh, and behind me, some 30 yards, is this independent witness who sees the entire interaction. And so at the time, this independent witness is not comfortable talking to us at the scene because he lives in the area, he knows people in the area, he's just uncomfortable talking to us at the scene. But he does set up an interview with us, an appointment the next day, which was this past Sunday, to interview with us. He gives us a video, audio tape interview. Okay? So at this point, as I'm describing this entire investigative process, we have 3 witnesses who have come down. 2 that were in the car with Mr. Husband, 1 who's independent, doesn't know anybody involved, but he sees and recounts the entire incident from beginning to end. We also have a 3rd witness that didn't see the entire incident, but sees portions of the incident that was in the parking lot that is associated with our independent witness, his girlfriend. She doesn't see the entire thing, but she sees portions of it. And we also interview the nephew, who's 8 years old. We're continuing to go out to this scene because in this particular area, people are apprehensive with coming forward, given obviously the highly charged emotional state of some of the family members, some of the people in the area regarding what's transpired in the media comments. And so what we're doing is continuing to go back, knocking on doors, trying to get people comfortable with coming forward if they saw something, to give us more interviews, more evidence about what they saw when. So that'll be ongoing, and that takes some time, and we'll take whatever time is needed to get as many accounts of what happened from people that saw it. I've heard in the media accounts not given to us that differ from what we've got on video and audio from the 2 witnesses that were in the car with Mr. Husband. Their accounts to some of your media outlets are different from the accounts we have on audio and videotape. They're different. They contradict each other. And we're asking them here now publicly. We've asked previously for them to come down and give those accounts in a sworn statement. And we're continuing to wait for that to happen. We hope that happens. And we're soliciting anyone else that has similar accounts that these 2 witnesses have to come down and actually swear to that that's actually what you saw. We also have tests that we are having done on evidence from the scene, physical evidence. And some of those types of tests take time, that they can't be done overnight, although we're asking that they be expedited. The one test that many of the media outlets have reported is whether or not where the point of entry of the bullet was. And many people have reported here that he was shot in the back. Well, we don't have a report from the medical examiner yet saying that, although we don't disbelieve their verbal accounts to you all. I think some of you broke that story that he was shot in the back in the shoulder blade, but we don't have a report from the medical examiner to that effect. So we're awaiting that, first the preliminary report and the final report that will include toxicology. It's important to know we're trying to match witness statements and physical evidence. That's key to any investigation of this nature. So being shot in the back, could be shot at an angle in the back, could be shot in the back straight center, how the bullet traveled, the angle of the bullet entry into Mr. Husband is vitally important to corroborate witness accounts, given that we know where they were standing according to some statements by independent witnesses, the officer, and even the witnesses that were in the car with Mr. Husband at the time. So the angle of the bullet entry into the shoulder is important for corroboration. We also are awaiting ballistic tests. There are ballistic tests that we're awaiting that will show distance between the officer and the victim, Mr. Husband. So how far away, there are ballistic tests that will say how far away they were from each other when Mr. Husband was impacted by the bullet. That's important, obviously, to firm up the officer's version, witness's version, even witnesses' version that contradict their own versions with us. So some witnesses say he was running away, handcuffed, so that would have been some distance. And so if ballistics match that, then we'll pursue that narrative. But if it's a short distance based on ballistics, based on witness accounts, based on where the victim, Mr. Husband, was laying when look at DVR video of it as officers arrived, where the blood is on the ground, is all evidence that we'll put together as we go forward in an investigation. And one other piece of evidence that's really important that we're pursuing in an investigative process. The .40 caliber gun was reported stolen by a citizen to Plano police. And so it's important, how did that gun get to that scene, get to Mr. Husband? It's important to find it. So we're pursuing that angle as well. Supposedly, a friend of a deceased person, according to accounts that we got now from the Plano report, loaned a gun to a person who is now deceased. So doing an inventory of the home, he went back to retrieve the gun that he loaned to a deceased person who lives in Plano. And so he couldn't find the gun. So he couldn't find the gun that he had loaned to a person who's deceased now. And so we need to find out if the person sold the gun who's deceased, he loaned the gun to someone, is there any association with anybody at the scene, including the officer or any of the people in the car with Mr. Husband, or was there some criminal offense that occurred as it relates to that gun being removed from the home in Plano? So that's kind of the outstanding investigative issues. Now I'd like to discuss the officer leave status real quickly. He's placed on what's called special assignment working desk duty. There are other statuses that I could have put him on. Other status I could have put him on administrative leave. Administrative leave is when the officer is sent home and paid until we decide to bring him back to work. Or we could have put him on restricted duty. Restricted duty is when the officer is set down at the desk and obviously restricted from contact with the public. And also the special assignment is what he's on. It's just wherever we need him to work. It could be at the division of his employment, it could be somewhere else. It's the special assignment designation. And so I've had calls for people to put him on administrative leave. I've had calls for to put on restricted duty. I decided on special assignment given at this point in the investigation, and it's fast changing obviously, there's a lot of loose ends as I mentioned, there is no evidence that we have to contradict the officer's accounts that Mr. Husband was going for a gun as the officer struggled with it and lost the grip. There's no evidence to contradict that at this point. Administrative leave designations usually when we find obviously serious violation of our rules, or that there's recommendations for termination, or that there's a criminal law violation. I mean, there's a serious allegation against an officer, gives the administrative leave designation. And so, given that there's no piece of evidence, not a shred of evidence at this point in the investigation that contradicts the officer's accounts, led me to the decision to put him on special assignment. Meeting with the family of Officer Hunter. We attempted to have a meeting with the family on yesterday with some members of the husband's family who they want answers about where we are in the investigation. Obviously, they have accusations that the officer did something untoward, and that there's something that the officer did that was not right. So we wanted to meet with them and walk them through exactly what I just told you all today. And at the last minute, the family members canceled that meeting once we told them that the meeting was for family members only. They wanted to bring others, non-family members. And that non-family member they wanted to bring was Reverend Wright, who is not a family member. And so we're hoping that the family will reschedule the meeting because we want to talk to them and walk them through the process, especially. Release of evidence. I mentioned video interviews, I mentioned DVR, I mentioned ballistic, I mentioned a lot of things that we have as evidence. And what normally happens in this type of investigation is that all of that evidence is collected by us and turned over to the district attorney, who presents it to the grand jury in secret. And all the grand jury testimony is secret, not open to the public, not open to Freedom of Information Act either. And so the decision for us is whether or not to release any of it prior to giving and delivering it to the district attorney's office. And I've yet to make that decision. Let's see. We are transcribing all of the video and audio tape interviews of the witnesses. And we're continuing to seek out witness interviews with people who have yet to come in and may have seen the incident happen. Next, and this is kind of the last comment for me before I open it up for questions, is the issue of race has come up specifically for this community. Mr. Husband is African American. This predominantly African American community where this happened. Initially, media reports state that Officer Limbaugh was white. That's what I've heard when I listened to some of the media reports. Officer Limbaugh is actually Hispanic, not white. That doesn't matter to us, but that seems to be a little bit of a flashpoint for some people in the community. So I just wanted to square that away, that race shouldn't matter, but I'm being practical about this. For some, it does. So I wanted to say, the reports about Officer Limbaugh being white were erroneous, not accurate, and he is Hispanic. Some reports in the media have that the community is angry, upset. You all have reported 2 people in the community, Reverend Wright and Peter Johnson, who's expressed being upset. 2 people. And I'm going to talk about the family here separate from this. And so I'm born and raised here, and I'm born and raised in this particular community where this happened. The media reports have been irresponsible in portraying the community as upset and angry when you bring forth 2 people, Reverend Wright and Peter Johnson. And on every police shooting, I would say the last decade, Reverend Wright has been front and center, angry and upset. And I see your head nods, right? And so in Peter Johnson's perspective, no disrespect to him, is from the 1960s as a civil rights activist. So he portrays the police culture from his perspective of the 1960s. Reverend Wright follows every police shooting and advocates for police misconduct and police culture being out of control. Everyone. So that's as much as I can say I'm trying to bite my tongue in this area. The media coverage of grieving family members. This is probably the most irresponsible reporting I've seen in a long time from some media outlets. I know a lot about grief. It can be very angry. Grief can be very accusatory and very retaliatory. That has absolutely nothing to do with the facts or the police department's or the DA's or the grand jury's role in getting to the truth. That's not to discount that reality of, obviously, grief being what this family's experienced and expressing. And I would hope that going forward, you could show some sense of obligation to this family not to display that grief in this process. I can only imagine a camera and a microphone being put in my face at the worst time in my family's life, trying to understand what happened in the death of a family member. The facts of this case just don't support some of the coverage that's been done. Not by all, just some. So I'm just appealing to your sense of this community to be more responsible. I'm appealing to you to help convey a more balanced report of what's transpired. I understand being shot in the back rises it above and beyond kind of a normal occurrence. We don't know the angle of the bullet. We don't know if it's a glancing shot that went up and out and in. We don't know the angles of positioning of where Mr. Husband was standing, compared to what the officers are saying, compared to what the independent witnesses are saying. All of that will be packaged up and presented to a grand jury. The police department doesn't recommend whether or not an officer's shooting was justified, right or wrong. The grand jury decides that. Once the grand jury has concluded their decision, then the department starts an administrative investigation to determine whether or not the officer violated any policy, which is our deadly force policy. Did they follow our policy? And that could take 6 months or more. That's the normal process. And that's the last thing I want to comment on. The pace of our investigation will not and cannot keep up with your news cycles. And I hate to sound like I'm lecturing. I know you all are very good at what you do. But the pace has to be thorough. We have to be right. We can't contradict physical evidence that has yet to be tested. We cannot. The best thing we can do for this grieving family is to be thorough in this investigation, to leave no stone unturned. And we are dedicated to making sure this investigation is done right for this family so they can get the answers that they need. They may not like the answers at the end of the day, but I think they deserve true and accurate information about what's happened and true and accurate reporting, sourced. So I'm hoping that I can appeal to you all to understand kind of our dilemma, that our pace has to be slow and grinding because it needs to be thorough. It needs to be thorough for this family to know exactly what happened based on corroborated witness testimony with physical evidence, not just witness testimony. It has to be corroborated by other witnesses and other physical evidence. And with that, I'll shut up and answer your questions.
Chief, did you say that, I may have missed this early on, did the officer have his body mic on, or did he not have a body mic on?
No, the body mic comes with the video. He didn't have the video in the car. That's how the recording is made.
Can you talk
Yes,
about the
ma'am.
discrepancy?
Chief, in the interest of getting to the truth about what happened, don't you feel like it's incumbent upon your spokespeople here to lay the cards on the table as you know them? Some things you can say, some things you can't say, but I think that leads to what you call misreporting. When we can't get straight answers about something as serious as this,
Yes.
it's frustrating for us. And, we would like to be able to interview your PIOs more so that they can tell us, hey, that's not what happened. I mean, here we are Wednesday, this happened Saturday. And, the public wants to know, especially a serious incident like this, And to be honest, it seems to me that this could have mitigated some of the miscues, you know?
I disagree. And I don't want to lecture you either. So I'll just say it this way. This is more about your needing to break the story than it is about the public needing to know. And we can't keep pace with your competitiveness with each other. We can't keep that pace. We can't tell you something that might change tomorrow, given the early stages. This is Wednesday. This is early for any evidence to be discussed. Because we haven't interviewed all the witnesses or followed up with all the witnesses. We haven't transcribed all the parts of the witness testimony to hear exactly, listening to a video and audio is different than reading, transcribe exactly what did they say, how did they say it, and comparing it with physical evidence. Does that match what another witness said? Does that match where the body was laying? Does that match what the officer said when standing? And again, we were being asked by you all to talk about what happened Sunday. What happened? That's what you're saying. Well, the one independent witness didn't come in the Sunday evening. And we were really trying to encourage him to feel comfortable coming in, and he's worried about the crowd out there turning on him because he's talking to the police. And so we couldn't have told you anything Sunday. And he came in Sunday, talked with us, very forthcoming, very open and honest. We then had to digest what he said compared to some of the physical evidence we were waiting for the ME to tell us Monday. So Monday, the ME tells us he was shot in the back. And so now we're comparing what he said to what exactly the ME verbally told us. Not in the report, but verbally told us. So I'm trying to compare it. So we could have said something Monday or Sunday or Tuesday, but it wouldn't be correct. We have to be correct, James. We cannot go out and get in front of a story because you're needing to get to the public because of sweeps week or ratings or whatever, trying to beat your competition and be wrong. We can't be wrong. We have to be right when we put out information. And I'm very cognizant of that. The worst thing we can do is say something Sunday that's not true Monday to this family, to this community, to this city. And we have to be comfortable when we say something that we have strong evidence to support it that's not going to change the next day or next 2 days or next week or next month. It's got to be slow and grinding, methodical, and correct.
Chief, I got to call you out on this.
Sure.
There are PIOs that show up in shootings all the time, at least get thumbnail, and it can at least tell whether there was a gun found on the suspect. That was a big question that was out there, where the suspect was laying, whether the officer was justified. They do this all the time. Why didn't they do this at least Monday? Why didn't they do this Tuesday? Why are we now waiting till Wednesday to find out?
Well, that's not accurate. We put out a press release immediately.
Spokesman, answer questions. Press release doesn't answer questions.
I understand. And unfortunately, some of the Q&A back and forth is just not productive for us. Even the PIO scrambling to listen to or waiting for the interview to happen. We hoped that the one independent witness would come down on the day it happened. We just couldn't persuade him to come down. And so our PIOs, obviously are police officers, and they're doing the best they can to keep up with you all. But normally on a shooting like this, it's controversial where you're hearing contradictory information. There's 20 of you asking us the same question. 20 of you. And we can't keep up with you. And you're all competing not to get it from us, but to be first. And even, I've talked to Morning News about this today, where print media is competitive with TV media now because of social media. You're all online, blogging right away, competing with each other to be first. And I appreciate you calling me out, because I need this dialogue with you all so you can understand our dilemma. What we can't do in the gun issue, whether or not he had a gun. Okay, so we say he had a gun, but now it's contradicted by physical evidence. There's an outside chance that the officer did something that he shouldn't have done. We have to make sure to say, before we say he had a gun, I want that corroborated by someone independent, not the officer. And we did not have that. We did not have that till corroborated until recently. I'm still wanting to know where that gun came from, how it got there, not only could there be an association with people in the car with how that gun came up missing, to make sure that officer has no association with the family in Plano. Does that make sense? We're laying on the table and saying, okay, what happened, without preconceived notions about what happened. So when we say or confirm a piece of evidence that ends up not being true, we lose all of our credibility. And I know it pains you that we can't say for sure this happened, that happened, a day or 2 days or 3 days afterwards. But it's important for us to be right. So much so, we have to take the criticism with the delay of the information. We have to. But Wednesday, this is pretty early to come out and take Q&A on still yet resolved testing. We don't have resolved some of the witness testimony, which witnesses are contradicting each other. What they said to us, and then what they say to you. We got to bring that together. What they're saying to you, he was running, he was handcuffed, and some distance, I'm assuming, running. We need them to come in and talk to us about that particular type of information. Yes,
Are you
ma'am.
concerned about the number of officer-involved shootings that the department has had?
You know, I was asked this before, and I anticipate this question, Andrea. One of the things I don't want to do here today is blur previous shootings with this one. The family is listening, and the community is listening closely at me today about this specific shooting. Specifically, what we're doing, how we're looking at the evidence, are we being fair? Are we listening to what they're saying? And I would rather, at some point, separate and apart from talking about this specific case, talk about the other cases. Because the other cases, we hadn't had this controversy. Some of the cases you didn't have not one question. People trying to commit suicide by cop. People committing robberies, trying to ambush us. One of our officers was shot on an ambush in the jaw, Officer Workman, in February. So since February, yes, a lot of shootings. And what I don't want to do is blur those previous incidents as if this one is just like those. It's not. It's separate and apart. Each one of them have been separate and apart from each other. And I don't want to blur or send out a perception that this one is like those in this context, in this form. Because this is specifically about the husband case. And I will talk to you, and I'll be glad to talk to any of you at some time later about those other shootings, if you don't mind.
Can you elaborate on the discrepancies between what they've told us in the media and what you all have been told?
A little bit. They were in their interview with us the day of. We brought them down here the day of, and they recounted similar to the officer's statements about what happened. From their perspective, one was at the back seat, didn't see all of it. One was in the front seat, didn't see all of it. And so they have some similarities to what they said, but they don't mention being handcuffed. They mention trying to run, but they don't mention running. And I lost track of some of the other statements, but some of the other statements are much different than what they told us. And we'd like for them to come back and talk to us so we can get that in our files as well.
Have y'all reached out and asked them to do that?
We have asked all witnesses in both of our press releases that we've released since Saturday, and I'm asking them now. Please come forward, come back to us so that we can get those statements recorded in the record. Someone that hadn't asked a question? Okay.
The meeting that was handled with the family canceled.
Yes.
Why do you limit it to family? If they wanted to bring someone, what issue do you take with them bringing people that they feel comfortable?
Our protocol has always been the family members get the briefing from a homicide detective. I think it's important because some of the motivations of this particular non-family member, right, is not genuine. It's very sensational, and we just don't want to go down that road at this point. This is important for the family. Maybe at some point, Reverend Wright gets talked with, but we have tried to talk to Reverend Wright on previous incidents and it hadn't gone well as far as what transpired in the meeting. So we're hesitant to bring him in with the family, given kind of what we know about how he does things.
Can you talk
without going back to the neighborhood, is there reason for you to believe that there are other witnesses? And how do you get them to come forward when you guys are wearing the same uniform as the guy, as one of the men in this?
It's always difficult. You know, some communities view this as snitching and wouldn't talk to the police. Our detectives go out in plain clothes when they go out and try to get interviews from some people that might have been witnesses but are unwilling to come forward. And we try to be as persuasive as we can. We do a very good job at it, but usually it takes time. People initially don't want to come forward when everything is emotionally charged. At some point when it dies down, they're more willing to come forward. Sometimes they want to meet off-site. They don't want to come to police headquarters. They want to meet somewhere else off-site. Sometimes they invite us in their homes. We want to talk. We just audio tape. And so we're hoping that we can get to that point thorough enough of our effort to go and seek out others that we're satisfied that there's no other witnesses out there.
So do you believe there are other witnesses though?
Yes, I'll follow up with you and yes, go
Like,
ahead.
do you believe that there are other witnesses this time?
I hope that whoever is out there this often will come forward. I have no clue whether or not there are other witnesses out there, but we're going to try to find those that may not be out there. So we have to make an effort. Yes, sir.
And back to the frustration, I think, between the media and you all's lack of giving us information.
Yes.
You said it was our competitiveness. Well, y'all used to send someone out, we all got the interview at the same time. Why have you changed your policy?
We hadn't changed the policy at all. I would argue that you've changed. You're more competitive. I think your industry is changing all the time. And we're hard pressed to keep up with the changes in your industry. There's fewer of you having to cover more. I would normally see people dedicated to our beat. Many of you have our beat with other beats. And so I think it's fast changing for you. I'm unwilling to add more PIO staff to keep up with the pace of the inquiry because we have our core mission, which is to fight crime, make the city safe. The information is important. Don't get me wrong. The information is important. I don't think we can have enough people to keep pace with your inquiry. One day we will have 80 open records requests. In one day, 80. And normally our civilian staff would try to meet that inquiry need. But that's an obligation of ours as a governmental entity to get